In this tutorial we're going to be learning how to crochet any size cluster stitches and also how to turn those cluster stitches into bobbles to add texture to your crochet. So cluster stitches are made up of partial stitches, so I will show you what that means. So when we have a cluster stitch in a pattern, it's often written like 3DCCL, and what that means is you're making a cluster of 3 double crochet stitches. Another example would be a 5TRCL, so a 5 treble cluster. We're going to be making a cluster out of 5 treble crochets. So I'll show you what those sorts of stitches look like. So we're going to start with that 3 double crochet cluster. So to make a 3 double crochet cluster, yarn over and put your hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, and now we're going to stop. We're not going to finish off that double crochet. Instead, we've made a partial double crochet. And we're going to repeat this step all into the same stitch until we have the number of stitches that the pattern is telling us it wants us to make. So in this case, it's a 3 double crochet cluster. So I'm going to make 3 partial double crochets into that same stitch. So I'm going to yarn over, put my hook back into the same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. I've now got 3 loops on my stitch and I've made 2 partial double crochets into the same stitch. So let's make one more. So yarn over, put your hook into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops on your hook. We now have 4 loops on our hook. So to finish off the cluster stitch, we're going to yarn over and draw through all of those loops on our hook. And if you can see, those 3 partial double crochets have been drawn together at the top, just like when we would do an increase, and that is what makes that cluster shape, kind of like a leaf or a petal. It's often used to represent leaves and petals in crochet. So now let's look at how we would make a different kind of cluster stitch. So for example, let's try a 2 treble crochet cluster. So to make a 2 treble crochet cluster, we would yarn over twice, put our hook into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and we've just stopped that stitch right before the last yarn over and pull through so that we've got a partial treble crochet. And because our stitch is a 2 treble crochet, we're going to make 2 partial treble crochets into the same stitch. So I'm yarning over twice, putting my hook into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And now I'm going to stop. So I've got 2 partial treble crochets in this stitch. If, for example, I had a larger stitch, so a 4 treble crochet cluster or a 5 treble crochet cluster or even more, I would continue making the amount of partial stitches that the pattern wants me to make. But because we're only making a 2 treble crochet cluster, all I need to do is yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on our hook to zip those stitches together at the top to again make that sort of leaf petal shape. So I hope that this tutorial has made cluster stitches a little bit easier for you. We're now going to learn how to turn a cluster stitch into a bobble. So bobble stitches are actually worked from the back of the work, because when we make our bobble it's going to be popping out of the back of that row of crochet, so we need to work from the back so our bobble shows on the front. So bobble stitches are usually made in rows of single crochet. So here I've started a row of single crochet, and then to make a bobble we make a cluster stitch into the next stitch. So for example, let's say that the pattern that I'm using wants a 4 double crochet bobble. So I'm going to do a 4 double crochet cluster into the next stitch. So I'm making those partial double crochets just like we did with the normal cluster stitches, and I'm going to make 4 of those partial stitches. So there's my 1, 2, 3, 4 partial double crochets, and then I'm going to yarn over and pull through all the loops on my hook to zip that cluster together. And then we're going to continue with our row of single crochet. It might feel a little bit weird after that, but hopefully you can see now because that cluster stitch is the same height as the rest of the single crochets, it has on the back formed a bobble, because it's pushed the back of that stitch out so that the top of that stitch goes back down to the same height as the single crochet. So that's how you make a bobble stitch. Just remember, it is formed on the wrong side of your square. We're going to be using both clusters and bobble stitches in the Yorkshire Sampler Blanket Crochet Along with the 12 different squares with all of the different stitches. So this is the Falling Leaf square, which it uses, I think, 6 different cluster stitches. And this is the waterfall square, and this uses bobble stitches to represent rocks either side of a waterfall. If you'd like to find out a little bit more about the Yorkshire Blanket Crochet Along, check out the video that's on your screen, and I'll also pop some information down in the description of this video. I will see you next time for another crochet tutorial.